She was the most feared Mafia queen in East Africa, Zuri Malisa, a woman whispered about in crime circles like a ghost story. And Junho, Seoul's golden boy, a flirt, a womanizer, a man who thought beauty was harmless until he met her at midnight on a motorcycle and dared to ask for her number. She warned him to stay away. He didn't listen. Now 10 black SUVs surround his mansion at dawn, and he finally understands. He flirted with fire, and fire never lets you escape. Welcome back to Afro-Korean Stories TV Besties. As always, I strive to give you the best viewing experience. Make sure you stay till the end. This story will leave you breathless. Gangnam traffic was suffocating at midnight. Red taillights stretched endlessly ahead, a glowing river of frustration. Junho drummed his fingers against the steering wheel of his Bentley Continental, jaw tight with irritation. He just closed a deal worth 40 million won, but somehow sitting in this gridlock made him feel powerless in ways money couldn't fix. Then he heard it. The deep, throaty purr of a Ducati Panigale V4 pulling up beside him, matte black, custom exhaust, the kind of bike that cost more than most people's apartments and sounded like controlled thunder. Junho glanced sideways and forgot how to breathe. The rider was female. That much was obvious from the curves the leather racing suit couldn't hide. Long legs wrapped around the machine like she was born on it, body angled forward in perfect riding position. But it was when she lifted her visor that his heart actually stuttered in his chest. Dark skin that glowed under Seoul's neon lights like polished mahogany. Eyes that held galaxies and secrets, and a confidence that made his mouth go dry. Full lips curved in a smile that knew exactly what she was doing to him, and was enjoying every second of it. "Nice car," she said, her voice accented. African, smooth like aged whiskey with honey undertones. "Compensating for something?" The comment should have annoyed him. Instead, Junho felt a thrill run down his spine. Women usually fawned over his car, his looks, his obvious wealth. This one was mocking him. He loved it. "Says the woman on a crotch rocket at midnight," he shot back, leaning toward his window with the smile that had gotten him into 1,000 beds. "Where are you headed, beautiful?" "Somewhere you can't follow." Her tone was playful but laced with challenge. "Try me. I'm very good at keeping up." She laughed, and the sound did something dangerous to his chest, like hearing music he didn't know he'd been waiting for his whole life. "I doubt that, pretty boy. You look like the type who's used to everything coming easy. And you look like the type who makes everything difficult. Only for men who think they deserve me without earning it." The traffic light ahead turned green. Cars began inching forward at a snail's pace. "Give me your number," Junho said quickly, suddenly desperate in a way he didn't recognize. "Or I'll die wondering what could have been." "Then die wondering." She revved the engine, the sound vibrating through his bones and straight into his bloodstream. "It'll be good for your character. Build some humility." "I don't want humility, I want you." The honesty surprised even him. He didn't say things like that, didn't show his cards, but something about her made him reckless. Her eyes softened for just a moment, a crack in the armor that let him see something vulnerable underneath. Then she dropped her visor and said, "Then prove you're worth wanting." Before he could respond, she shot forward, weaving between cars with the precision of someone who owned the night. The Ducati's taillights disappeared into Seoul's labyrinth of streets within seconds, leaving only the fading growl of her engine and the ghost of her perfume, something exotic and spicy that lingered in his car like a spell. Junho sat frozen, staring at empty space, his heart racing like he'd just run a marathon. For the first time in 32 years, a woman had said no to him. For the first time in his life, he actually cared about changing that answer. For the first time ever, he felt truly alive. 3 days passed like torture. 3 days where Seo Junho, Seoul's most eligible bachelor and CEO of Seo Luxury Developments, couldn't stop thinking about a woman whose name he didn't even know. Her laugh haunted him during board meetings. Her voice echoed in his mind during investor calls. That smile, equal parts invitation and warning, followed him into dreams that left him tangled in sweat-soaked sheets. "You're completely distracted," said Park Min-joon, his CFO and closest friend since university, during their morning strategy meeting. "The Japanese investors are waiting for your answer on the Jeju resort project. It's been 3 days, Junho." "Tell them yes." Junho barely glanced up from his phone, scrolling through nothing, hoping irrationally that she might somehow contact him despite never having his number. "You haven't even read the terms. This is a $200 million project." "I don't need to. The numbers are good. I always win." Min-joon exchanged looks with the other executives around the conference table. They all knew Junho's reputation: brilliant mind for business, ruthless negotiator, charming enough to make enemies smile while he systematically destroyed them. But recently, specifically the last 72 hours, something had shifted. "The charity gala is tomorrow night," Min-joon said carefully, watching his friend's face. "You confirmed attendance weeks ago, remember? Politicians, foreign investors, media coverage. You're expected to give the keynote about urban development." "I know what I'm expected to do." Junho stood abruptly, adjusting his Tom Ford suit with irritated precision. "I wrote the playbook on these events." What he didn't say was that he was already planning his outfit, his entrance, his performance. Because somewhere in the back of his mind, in a place where logic didn't reach, he kept replaying that voice. Somewhere you can't follow. He'd prove her wrong. He had to. The Grand Joseon Palace Hotel was ablaze with lights when Junho arrived the following evening. Photographers crowded the red carpet, flashes exploding like small bombs as Korea's elite stepped from their vehicles. Politicians in traditional hanbok mixed with young tech billionaires in Italian suits. Old money whispered to new money. This was Seoul's upper echelon. The 1% of the 1%, gathered to throw money at charitable causes and make business connections over champagne that cost more per bottle than monthly rent. Junho adjusted his midnight blue Brioni 3-piece suit, custom made in Milan, fitted to perfection. His Patek Philippe caught the light. His hair was styled just messy enough to look effortless. He knew exactly how he looked. Devastating, powerful, untouchable. He'd been to 100 events like this, knew exactly how to work the room, which hands to shake, which women to charm for their corporate connections or political influence. Tonight felt different. He couldn't explain why, but the air itself seemed charged with possibility, like the moment before lightning strikes. He moved through the hotel lobby, nodding at familiar faces. CEO Kim from Hanwha Corporation discussing semiconductor exports, Director Lee from the Ministry of Finance laughing too loudly at someone's joke, model-turned-actress Song Hye-jin, who'd been trying unsuccessfully to seduce him for 6 months, wearing a dress that left nothing to imagination. He gave her the smile that promised nothing and kept walking, ignoring the disappointment in her eyes. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from hand-painted ceilings depicting ancient Korean mythology. A live orchestra played Western classical music, Vivaldi, he thought absently, while servers in white gloves circulated with champagne and canapes that were more art than food. Easily 500 people filled the space, all dressed in their power and wealth and carefully constructed personas. Junho grabbed a glass of Dom Perignon from a passing server and scanned the crowd, already calculating conversations, already bored before the evening truly began. Then the room shifted. It wasn't dramatic at first. No announcement, no fanfare. But conversation dipped like someone had physically turned down the volume on reality itself. Heads turned toward the grand entrance with the synchronized precision of a choreographed dance. Even the orchestra seemed to soften, though that might have been his imagination. And she walked in. Time didn't stop. Junho didn't believe in that romantic nonsense, but it definitely slowed to a crawl that let him absorb every impossible detail. The woman from the motorcycle was gliding through the doorway like she owned not just the room, but the entire concept of presence itself. She wore a deep emerald gown that hugged every dangerous curve before splitting at her left thigh, revealing a leg that could make grown men forget their own names. The fabric was silk or something even more expensive, shimmering with each step like liquid starlight. Her hair fell in soft, natural curls over bare shoulders. Diamond earrings, real ones, he could tell from 50 feet away, the kind that cost 6 figures, caught the chandelier light and threw tiny rainbows across her skin. But it was her face that completely destroyed him. Without the motorcycle helmet, she was devastating in ways that shouldn't be legal. High cheekbones that could cut glass, full lips painted a dangerous shade of burgundy that made him think of wine and sin and things he shouldn't be imagining in public. Eyes lined in gold that made her dark skin glow like she'd been personally carved from midnight by an artist who understood perfection. She wasn't just beautiful. She was a weapon designed specifically to ruin men. Junho watched as every man in the room felt it. That magnetic pull, that instant desire, that dangerous recognition that they were in the presence of something extraordinary. He watched their wives and girlfriends notice it too, see their partners' attention shift, watch the subtle territorial calculations happen in real time. But she didn't acknowledge any of it. She smiled graciously, nodded at greetings from people who clearly knew her, but didn't stop walking. Her hips swayed in a rhythm that should be classified as a lethal weapon. Her spine was straight with the posture of someone who'd never bowed to anyone, and she was walking straight toward him. His heart actually slammed against his ribs hard enough to hurt. She stopped 3 feet away, exactly the same distance as their first encounter, he noted deliriously, close enough that her perfume wrapped around him like a physical touch. That same exotic, spicy scent that had haunted him for 3 days. Up close, she was even more stunning. Her makeup was flawless but subtle, enhancing rather than hiding. Her skin looked impossibly soft. Her presence was suffocating in the best possible way. "You," he said, and his voice came out rougher than intended, scraped raw by 3 days of wondering. "Me," she agreed, lips curving in amusement that lit her eyes from within. He recovered quickly, stepping forward with his trademark confidence, even as his pulse hammered in places he didn't know had pulses. "I looked for you. I've been looking for you." "I know. How could you possibly—" "Because I've been watching you look." Her smile deepened, became something intimate. It was quite entertaining. "You've been watching me?" "Don't sound so surprised. You're not exactly difficult to track. Seoul's most eligible bachelor, making headlines weekly. The Playboy CEO who dates models and breaks hearts." "Is that what you think I am?" "I don't think anything. I know exactly what you are." She tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle she'd already solved. "The question is whether you know what you're getting into with me." Before he could respond, 2 men appeared from nowhere. Large, professional, moving with the fluid grace of serious training. They wore excellent suits that almost hid the subtle earpieces and the telltale bulges that marked concealed weapons. They positioned themselves on either side of her, not threatening, just present, creating a barrier between her and the world. Junho blinked, his brain struggling to process. "You have bodyguards? To a charity gala?" "You don't?" She seemed genuinely curious, like his lack of security was the strange part of this equation. "I don't need—" He stopped, reassessing everything. In his world, bodyguards were for paranoid politicians and aging chaebols worried about kidnapping. He was a CEO. Successful, yes. Wealthy, certainly. But not that kind of powerful. Who was this woman? "I'm CEO Junho," he said, extending his hand with more formality than he'd intended. "CEO of CO Luxury Developments, though I suspect you already knew that." She took his hand, and the brief contact sent electricity racing up his arm and straight into his chest. Her skin was impossibly soft, but her grip was firm. Equal. This was not a woman who'd ever been beneath anyone in any sense. I know exactly who you are, Mr. Seo. Your company built half of Gangnam's luxury district. You inherited the business at 26 when your father died. You've tripled its value in 6 years. You donate to exactly 3 charities annually for tax purposes. You date beautiful women, but never for longer than 3 months. Okay, I get it. You did your homework. He was impressed and slightly unnerved. And you are? Zuri Melissa. She released his hand slowly, deliberately, her fingers trailing across his palm in a way that might have been accidental but definitely wasn't. Businesswoman, among other things. What kind of business? Her smile was mysterious. The successful kind. That's not an answer. I rarely give answers on first meetings. You have to earn those. Someone called his name across the room. Director Park from the Blue House. Important connection. Future development opportunities. Junho ignored him completely. For the first time in his professional life, he ignored a connection that could be worth millions. Dance with me, he said, the words coming out more demand than request. I don't dance with strangers. We're not strangers. We've met before. Traffic, your motorcycle, your charming rejection that's been driving me insane for 3 days. That wasn't a rejection. Zuri's eyes sparkled with mischief and something darker, more dangerous. That was me teaching you that not everything you want comes when you snap your fingers. And has the lesson worked? You tell me, are you still here, ignoring important people, focused entirely on me? He was. God help him. He was rooted to this spot like she'd cast some kind of spell. Around them, he could feel people starting to notice their conversation, could hear the whisper of speculation rippling outward. Who was she? Why was Seo Junho, notorious playboy who rarely gave anyone more than 15 minutes, staring at her like she'd invented oxygen? What would it take? He asked quietly, stepping closer, drawn by gravity he couldn't resist. For you to give me a chance? A chance at what, exactly? Anything. Everything. One night, one conversation, coffee, dinner, your phone number. A reason to believe I didn't imagine you. Zuri studied him with those impossibly deep eyes, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, he saw something vulnerable flicker across her face. Loneliness, maybe. Recognition. The look of someone who'd been alone so long they'd forgotten what connection felt like. Then her mask slipped back into place, smooth and perfect. She leaned in close enough that her lips nearly brushed his ear, close enough that he could feel her breath against his skin, and whispered, "Careful, Mr. Seo. Not every door you try to open belongs to you. Some doors have locks that can't be picked. Some rooms are too dangerous for pretty boys who've never been hurt." The words were a warning wrapped in silk. They should have made him retreat. Instead, they made him desperate. "I'm not afraid of danger," he said, catching her wrist gently before she could pull away. "I'm afraid of never seeing you again." Her breath hitched, barely noticeable, but he was close enough to catch it, close enough to see her pupils dilate slightly, close enough to know he'd landed a hit. "You don't know what you're asking for," she said softly, but she didn't pull away from his touch. "Then teach me. Show me. Let me in." For a moment, the universe held its breath. The orchestra played, conversations hummed around them, but in their small bubble, everything was suspended. Then Zuri smiled, sad and beautiful and full of regret. "Not tonight," she said, gently extracting her wrist from his grip. "But soon, if you're brave enough to wait." She pulled back, her bodyguards instantly creating a barrier between them. Within seconds, she'd been absorbed into another cluster of powerful people who greeted her like she was exactly where she belonged, like she was one of them. Junho stood there, champagne forgotten in his hand, feeling like he'd just been hit by a truck wrapped in silk and diamonds and impossible promises. Minjun appeared at his elbow, eyes wide. "Who the hell was that?" "I don't know." The admission tasted like failure. Junho, you were staring at her like she personally created gravity, like she was the sun, and you'd been living in darkness your entire life. Find out everything about her. Junho's voice came out harder than intended, edged with desperation he didn't bother hiding. Everything. Where she lives, what she does, who she knows, where she goes. I want a full report by tomorrow morning. That sounded extremely stalker-ish, like restraining order level. I don't care, do it. Minjun sighed but pulled out his phone, already texting their research team. As Junho watched Zuri work the room with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, touching arms, laughing at jokes, commanding attention without trying, he realized something fundamental had changed. He'd been with dozens of women, beautiful, successful, connected. He'd charmed heiresses and models and entrepreneurs and actresses. He'd played the game, enjoyed the chase, savored the conquest. But he'd never chased anyone. Not really. Women came to him. They always had. Until her. Until Zuri. And somehow, impossibly, that made all the difference. The sun hadn't fully risen when Junho's phone started vibrating across his nightstand like a seizure. He ignored the first 3 calls, buried deeper under Italian silk sheets, trying to recapture the dream he'd been having. Zuri in that green dress. Zuri on her motorcycle. Zuri's lips against his ear. The 4th call was persistent enough that he answered groggily. "Sir?" It was Kwon, his head of security, ex-military, paranoid by training, never called unless something was seriously wrong. "We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" Junho glanced at his bedside clock. 5:47 a.m. "Unless someone's actively dying, I don't—" "There are vehicles outside your home, sir. 10 of them, black Mercedes SUVs. They arrived approximately 5 minutes ago and haven't moved. No one has exited. They're just waiting." Ice water flooded Junho's veins, shocking him fully awake. "What? Who are they?" "Unknown. The security system can't identify the plates. They're using diplomatic tags, but they're not registered with any embassy. The vehicles are completely unmarked. No visible weapons, but what? Sir, this is the kind of formation you see in military operations or organized crime. Whoever's out there, they're professional. Very professional." Junho's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Corporate espionage, gang warfare, political intimidation, extortion, kidnapping. In Seoul's cutthroat business world, unmarked vehicles at dawn meant serious trouble. He threw on pants and a shirt, barely buttoning it, and ran downstairs barefoot. His mansion, inherited from his father, expanded over the years. 30 rooms on 2 pristine acres in the heart of Gangnam had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable. Through the front windows, he could see exactly what Kwon had described. 10 identical black Mercedes SUVs parked in perfect formation along his circular driveway, creating a barrier between his house and the street. Tinted windows revealed nothing, no markings, no movement, just expensive vehicles and ominous silence. "Call the police," Junho said, his throat tight. "Already did, sir. They're approximately 10 minutes out. Should I engage the additional security protocols?" "Yes, and get everyone in the house to—" He stopped. The lead SUV's door was opening, and she stepped out. Zuri Melissa emerged from the vehicle wearing black leather that looked painted on, motorcycle jacket, tight pants, boots that added 3 inches to her already impressive height. Oversized Dior sunglasses hid her eyes despite the early morning darkness. Her hair was pulled back in a high ponytail that emphasized her bone structure. Behind her, doors opened on the other vehicles. Women exited, not men, he noticed with shock, but women. All dressed similarly in tactical black, all moving with military precision, all positioned with the practiced spacing of people trained in combat. They weren't carrying visible weapons. They didn't need to. The threat was in their coordination, their confidence, their sheer presence. Junho stared through the window, his brain struggling to process what he was seeing, trying to reconcile the elegant woman from the gala with this vision of organized power. Zuri removed her sunglasses slowly, folded them with deliberate care, tucked them into her jacket pocket. Then she looked directly at his front door, directly at him, though he was certain she couldn't see through the polarized glass, and smiled. The kind of smile that said, "I know exactly where you are. I know you're watching. This is all for you." "Sir?" Kwan's voice was urgent in his ear. "Should we engage? I have 8 men in position. We can—" "No." Junho was already moving toward the door, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Everyone stand down. Nobody moves. Nobody does anything unless I give explicit orders." "But that's an order, Kwan." He stepped outside into the cool morning air, dew still clinging to his carefully manicured lawn. Birds were starting their morning songs. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt like standing on a battlefield before the first shot. Zuri walked toward him with that same graceful stride from the gala, hips swaying perfectly at ease, like showing up to someone's home with a private army was completely normal. When she stopped, once again exactly 3 feet away, some kind of personal boundary she maintained, he could smell her perfume mixing with the morning air. "Good morning, Junho." His name and her accent sent shivers down his spine that had nothing to do with the dawn chill. "Did you sleep well?" His mouth opened, closed, opened again. What are you doing here?" "You asked me to follow you home last night. At the gala, you asked what it would take for me to give you a chance." She gestured casually toward the army of vehicles behind her. "So here I am, following you home, giving you that chance." "This is—" He couldn't find words. His vocabulary had apparently left the building. "This is insane. You showed up to my house with 10 SUVs and what looks like a private military force? You wanted my attention." Her smile was innocent in the most dangerous way possible. "Now you have it. All of it. I wanted coffee, a conversation, maybe dinner at a nice restaurant. Did you?" She tilted her head, and he could see genuine curiosity mixed with challenge. "Or did you want to add me to your collection? Another beautiful woman conquered by the great Seo Junho? Another 3-month relationship that ends when you get bored?" The accusation hit harder because it was partially true. How many women had he charmed, bedded, and forgotten? How many times had he enjoyed the chase more than the capture? How many hearts had he broken simply because he could? But looking at Zuri now, surrounded by her people, completely in control, radiating a power he was just beginning to understand, he realized something crucial. She wasn't prey. She was an apex predator teaching him what the food chain actually looked like. "I don't know what you think you know about me," he started, trying to regain his footing. "I know everything about you, darling." Her voice was gentle, almost kind, which made it worse. Seo Junho, 32 years old, only child, inherited Seo luxury developments from your father 6 years ago after his heart attack and tripled its worth through aggressive expansion. Known playboy. 17 confirmed relationships in the past 4 years, none lasting more than 3 months. You prefer blondes but sleep with brunettes. You work out 6 days a week. You have commitment issues stemming from your mother's death when you were 12. Cancer, pancreatic, she lasted 6 months. You compensate with control and conquest. You donate to children's cancer research annually in her name. You cry alone once a year on her birthday. You— Stop. The word came out strangled. How do you know all that? You're not the only one who knows how to research people, sweetheart. She stepped closer, and he caught himself leaning back involuntarily. The difference is, I do it before I show interest. You do it after you've already decided you want something. I assess the risk. You ignore it. What do you want from me? Want from you? Zuri laughed, and it was musical and slightly mocking. Darling, I don't want anything from you. I have my own money, my own power, my own empire. But you wanted a chance. You looked at me last night like I was oxygen and you'd been drowning. So I'm here, giving you exactly what you asked for. This isn't... He gestured helplessly at the vehicles, the women, the entire surreal situation. Normal people don't show up like this. Normal people don't interest me. She moved even closer, invading his personal space in a way that should have felt aggressive, but somehow felt intimate. And I don't think I interest normal men, do I, Junho? His name again. God, the way she said it, like a caress and a threat and a promise all at once, should be illegal in 17 countries. Who are you, really? He asked quietly, voice rough with awe and confusion, and something that might have been fear, but felt more like exhilaration. A businesswoman. I told you already. Businesswomen don't travel with armed security and 10-vehicle convoys. Successful ones do. Her smile was mysterious, holding secrets he suddenly needed to know more than his next breath. If you want to know more, you'll have to earn it. Are you brave enough for that? Brave enough to step outside your comfortable world? Every logical cell in his brain screamed danger, red flags, alarms. This woman was clearly involved in something far beyond his carefully constructed world of real estate and charity galas, something possibly, probably, illegal, something that could destroy his reputation, his company, his entire life. But he'd been bored for so long, playing by rules he'd mastered years ago, dating women who wanted him for his money or his status or his face. Zuri didn't need any of those things. She had her own power, her own rules, her own kingdom. And for the first time since his father died and left him an empire he'd never asked for, Junho felt truly, devastatingly alive. Coffee, he said, surprised by how steady his voice came out. Inside, just you. Your army can wait out here. Negotiating already? Zuri's eyes sparkled with approval. That's promising, very promising. Fine, coffee, 1 hour, but my people stay close, non-negotiable. Why? Are you in danger? Is someone after you? Always. She said it so casually, like discussing the weather or traffic. But so are you now. What does that mean? It means, Mr. SEO, that the moment you showed interest in me at that gala, the moment you looked at me like that, spoke to me like that, touched me like that, you became interesting to people who notice these things, people who watch me, who track my movements, who want to know who I care about. She reached up, traced one finger along his jawline in a touch so light it might have been imagined. So my security isn't just for me anymore. It's for you, too, whether you want it or not. Ice ran down his spine, even as heat followed her touch. What have you gotten me into? Nothing yet. Absolutely nothing. She gestured toward his front door. But that coffee invitation? That's your first real step. Once you let me in, everything changes. So choose wisely, Seo Junho. Choose very, very wisely. He should have said no. Should have called the police, his lawyers, his board of directors. Should have protected his carefully constructed life, his reputation, his safe and boring existence. Instead, he stepped aside and held the door open. After you. Zuri's smile could have melted steel and frozen fire simultaneously. Excellent choice, she purred, walking past him. As she entered, he caught that scent again, spicy, exotic, dangerous. Behind her, one of her female guards spoke quietly into a radio. Boss is inside primary residence. Perimeter established. Code yellow. Repeat, code yellow. All units maintain position. Code yellow. Whatever that meant, it couldn't be good. Junho closed the door and wondered if he'd just made the best or worst decision of his life. Possibly both. Definitely both. His kitchen had never felt so small. Zuri sat at his marble island like she'd been there 1,000 times, leather jacket unzipped to reveal a simple black tank top underneath that hugged curves that should require a license. She'd let her hair down from the ponytail. It fell in natural curls that caught the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Without the formal gown, without the armor of the gala, she looked younger. Still dangerous, but also achingly human. Espresso, Americano, cappuccino, Junho asked, moving to his commercial-grade La Marzocco machine. Imported from Italy, cost more than a car. He'd never admit he bought it mostly for show. I have 17 types of beans. Of course you do. She was smiling, but it wasn't mocking. It was fond. Americano, black, no sugar, no cream. Figures. You don't strike me as someone who needs sweetness. If I wanted sweetness, I wouldn't be here. I'd be home in bed sleeping like a normal person. He made their drinks in silence, hyper-aware of her eyes tracking his every movement. The way he ground the beans, the precision with which he tamped the espresso, the slight furrow in his brow when the extraction ran a second too long. When he set her cup down, their fingers brushed. That same electric contact from last night, but somehow more intense in the quiet intimacy of morning. So, he said, taking the seat directly across from her instead of beside her, maintaining that 3-foot distance she seemed to prefer. Tell me why you're really here. You invited me. You came with 10 cars and a strike team. That's not a social call. You wanted attention. I gave you attention. What's the problem? The problem... He stopped, regrouped, tried to find words that wouldn't make him sound like a naive child. Look, I don't know what game this is, but I'm not some innocent. You're clearly involved in something serious, something probably illegal. I have a company to run, shareholders to answer to, a reputation to maintain. I can't afford... Can't afford what? Zuri's voice was soft but edged with steel. Complication? Risk? Something that doesn't fit into your perfectly planned, perfectly controlled life? Something messy and dangerous and real? I didn't say that. You're thinking it. She sipped her coffee, eyes never leaving his, reading him like a book written in a language only she understood. You're thinking I'm trouble. You're thinking this could blow up in your face. You're thinking about all the logical, sensible, boring reasons you should walk away right now and never look back. He said nothing, because she was absolutely right. But you won't, she continued, voice dropping to something intimate, because I make you feel something you haven't felt in years, maybe ever. You've been playing a game you mastered so long. Huggo, it stopped being fun. The chase was too easy, the women too predictable, the winds too hollow. You're bored, Junho, desperately, dangerously bored. You've been sleepwalking through a life everyone would kill for. Every word was a scalpel, cutting away his defenses with surgical precision. And then I showed up, Zuri said quietly, leaning forward slightly. A woman who doesn't want your money, who doesn't need your status, who isn't impressed by your charm or your face or your $12,000 watch, who can match you move for move and raise you besides. I'm everything you didn't know you were looking for because you didn't know it was possible to want something this much. You're everything that could destroy me, he said hoarsely. Yes. She didn't deny it, didn't soften it. I am, completely and utterly. But what a beautiful way to burn. The air between them was thick enough to choke on. Junho felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff in darkness, knowing he should step back but wanting so badly to jump just to feel the fall. Tell me one true thing, he said finally, about who you really are. Not the surface, not the businesswoman act. Something real. Zuri was quiet for so long he thought she might not answer. She stared into her coffee like it held secrets. Then, so softly he had to lean forward to hear, I run a network. People who need things that traditional systems can't or won't provide. I move money, products, information across borders. I solve problems that have no legal solutions. I connect people who shouldn't connect. And I do it so well that people pay enormous amounts to ensure I'm working for them, not against them. That sounds like... Don't. Her voice went sharp as broken glass. Don't say what you're thinking. Words have consequences. If you say it, It becomes real in a way neither of us can walk back from. Right now, we're just having coffee, say the word, and everything changes. Mafia, organized crime, criminal empire. The words hung unspoken, but deafening between them. Junho's hands shook. He gripped his coffee cup tighter, knuckles going white. Why tell me this? Why risk it? Because you asked for honesty, and because if this goes any further, if you take one more step toward me, you need to understand exactly what you're stepping into, what you're risking, what you're choosing. She stood, walked around the island with that predatory grace until she was standing directly in front of him, close enough to touch. I like you, Junho. I don't like many people, but I like your arrogance, your confidence, the way you think you can charm your way through anything until you meet someone who's immune, the way you're simultaneously terrified of me and attracted to me. That battle in your eyes right now, that's the most honest thing I've seen in years. Are you immune? He asked. To the charm? No. Her honesty hit like a physical blow. That's the problem. I'm not supposed to care about pretty CEO playboys with father issues and hero complexes. I'm not supposed to show up at their houses at dawn with my entire security detail because they looked at me like I was magic. But here I am, risking exposure, risking attention, risking my carefully maintained anonymity, breaking every rule I've lived by for 7 years. Why? Because you made me laugh in traffic. Because you looked at me like I was the sun and you'd never seen daylight. Because in a world where everyone wants something from me, money, connections, protection, power, you just wanted me. Just me, no agenda, no angle, just want. She reached out with one hand, traced her fingers along his jawline with a touch so light it felt like a ghost. That's rare, precious, dangerous. Junho caught her hand, held it against his face, turned his head slightly to press his lips to her palm. The gesture was intimate and desperate and completely unplanned. If I do this, if I choose this, choose you, what happens next? Honestly, I don't know. I've never let someone in before. Not like this. Never? Never. Zuri's voice cracked slightly and he heard genuine vulnerability there. My world doesn't allow relationships. They're vulnerabilities, weapons people can use against you, leverage. Every person you care about becomes a target. But I'm so tired of being alone at the top, tired of being the ice queen, the untouchable, the one everyone fears but nobody knows. I'm tired of going home to empty rooms and counting my money and my power and realizing none of it means anything because there's no one to share it with. I want to know you. The words came out fierce, almost angry. I want to know everything, every scar, every secret, every fear. I want to know what makes you laugh and what makes you cry and what you dream about at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. I know. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm terrified. He stood slowly, still holding her hand until they were inches apart. He could see flecks of gold in her brown eyes, could see the slight tremble in her breath that meant she was just as affected as he was, could see past the armor to the woman underneath, lonely and powerful and so tired of being alone. This is insane, he whispered, completely. We'll probably destroy each other, most likely. I should walk away right now, call my lawyers, protect my life. You absolutely should. But neither of them moved. Instead, Junho did what he'd been dreaming about since that traffic light 3 days, no, a lifetime, ago. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't careful. It wasn't the practiced seduction he'd perfected over years of meaningless encounters. It was desperate and demanding and raw and everything neither of them would admit out loud. His hands tangled in her hair, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him impossibly closer. She tasted like coffee and danger and some addictive poison he knew he'd spend the rest of his life craving. She made a sound, something between a gasp and a moan, that went straight through him like lightning. His hands dropped to her waist, pulling her flush against him, and she responded by wrapping one leg around his hip in a move that should have been obscene, but somehow felt necessary, like they were trying to occupy the same space. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, Zuri laughed breathlessly. "Well," she said, voice wrecked, "that's a problem." "What is?" "Now I definitely can't walk away. Now I'm completely fucked." "Is that a complaint?" "That's a statement of fact." She pulled back slightly, just enough to meet his eyes. "Do you understand what this means? What you're agreeing to by kissing me like that?" "I'm agreeing to figure it out as we go. Together. You're agreeing to make yourself a target. My enemies will come for you. The people who want to hurt me will see you as the easiest way to do it. Then we make sure they can't touch me, or you, or us. There is no us yet, just chemistry and terrible decisions. Then let's make terrible decisions together." He kissed her again, softer this time, a promise instead of a demand. "I'm all in, Zuri. Whatever this is, wherever it goes, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you." Her eyes glistened with something that might have been tears. "You're going to regret this." "Probably, but I'd regret not trying more." She kissed him again, and this time it was her turn to be desperate, her turn to pour everything she couldn't say into the contact. When she finally pulled away, she was smiling, a real smile, unguarded and beautiful and devastating. "One more thing," she said. "What?" "My people need to sweep your house. Security assessment, install some upgraded systems. You're now officially under my protection, which means your security needs to be significantly better than rich guy with paranoid security chief." "You're taking over my security? I'm ensuring you don't die because you kissed the wrong woman." She said it lightly, but he could hear the fear underneath. "Consider it my first gift to you." "What's the second?" "That depends on how well you behave." She pulled away, started zipping up her jacket. "I have to go. Actual business I can't postpone. But I'll call you tonight. We'll figure out next steps." "When will I see you again?" "Soon. Very soon, I promise." She walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. "Junho?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for opening the door. Not many people would have." "Thank you for knocking." She smiled. Then she was gone, leaving only the scent of her perfume and the taste of her lips and the complete certainty that his life had just changed forever. Junho stood in his kitchen for a long time after she left, touching his mouth, replaying everything, wondering if he'd just made a deal with the devil or found his salvation. Possibly both. Definitely both. And he'd never been happier. 3 days of silence. 3 agonizing days, where Junho tried desperately to focus on work and failed spectacularly. Board meetings blurred into meaningless noise. Investor calls felt like performing a play he'd already forgotten the lines to. He caught himself checking his phone every 3 minutes like a teenager, waiting for their crush to text back. "This is legitimately pathetic," Minjun observed during a particularly disastrous meeting where Junho had approved a budget without even reading it. "You're moping. SEO Junho, notorious playboy, is moping over a woman. I'm not moping." "You're doing an award-winning impression then." Minjun leaned closer. "You approved 7 million won for a project you haven't reviewed. You wore the same suit yesterday. You have coffee stains on your shirt. You're a mess." "I'm fine." "You're the opposite of fine. You're whatever fine looks like in a funhouse mirror." Junho didn't argue because Minjun was right. He couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way she kissed, the vulnerability in her voice when she admitted being lonely, the warmth of her skin, the taste of her lips. It was consuming him in a way nothing ever had. On day 4, Junho was leaving his office at nearly midnight when a black SUV pulled up. Not 10 this time, just 1. The window rolled down to reveal one of Zuri's guards, the tall woman with Kenyan features he'd seen at the house. "Get in," she said without preamble. "Where are we going?" "Boss needs you. That's all you need to know." Every survival instinct screamed no. This was how people disappeared, how bodies ended up in the Han River with concrete shoes. But he thought about Zuri's eyes when she admitted being tired of being alone, thought about her kiss, thought about the way she'd said his name like it was something precious. He got in the car. They drove for nearly an hour, leaving Seoul proper for industrial outskirts he'd never seen. Warehouses and shipping containers, graffiti and rust, the kind of area where screams wouldn't be heard and questions wouldn't be asked. Junho's heart hammered against his ribs hard enough to bruise. The SUV stopped outside a nondescript building with blacked-out windows. The guard opened his door without speaking. "Third floor. She's waiting." He climbed stairs that smelled like rust and old concrete and things he didn't want to identify, reached a steel door that looked like it belonged in a prison. Knocked. "Come in." Zuri's voice, warm and familiar, and the most beautiful sound in the world. He entered and froze. The room was clearly some kind of command center, multiple computer screens showing security feeds, maps, data streams in languages he didn't recognize. 2 more of her guards worked at terminals, fingers flying across keyboards. And Zuri stood at the center of it all, hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, wearing tactical pants and a tight black shirt that showed the lean muscle of her arms, looking every inch the dangerous. Operative Min Jun had warned him about. She turned when he entered, and relief flooded her features so completely it was almost painful to witness. "You came," she breathed. "You sent someone to collect me like I was a package. Of course I came." He looked around, taking in the sophisticated setup, the weapons he could now see mounted on the walls, the communication equipment. "What is this place?" "My real office, where I actually work." She dismissed the guards with a gesture. They left without question, without hesitation, the kind of obedience that came from absolute trust. "I need your help." "My help? I'm a real estate developer who's good with spreadsheets and zoning laws." "You're a connected man with legitimate businesses and 0 criminal record. I need that." She pulled up something on the main screen. Shipping manifests, financial documents, tracking data. "Someone is moving products through Seoul that I didn't authorize, using my name, my reputation, my networks, cutting into my operations. And you want me to... what exactly?" "Your company has contracts with Busan Port Authority, multi-year agreements for your luxury developments. I need access to shipping records, legitimate access that won't trigger alerts or investigations." Junho's mouth went dry. His palms started sweating. "You're asking me to help you commit crimes. You're asking me to use my company's legal access for illegal purposes." "I'm asking you to help me stop someone from starting a war. These unauthorized shipments?" She pointed to the screen where containers were highlighted in red. "They're weapons, Junho. Military grade, assault rifles, ammunition, explosives. If they hit the streets, people die. Innocent people. The kind of people I protect, the communities I serve. Then go to the police, report it through proper channels." The police can't move fast enough, and whoever's doing this has inside connections. Someone in the Port Authority, probably someone in law enforcement. By the time official channels investigate, run backgrounds, get warrants, the damage is done. Ships have sailed, weapons have vanished, bodies have dropped. She moved closer, and he could see exhaustion in the lines around her eyes. "I know what I'm asking. I know the position this puts you in. I know I have no right to ask. But you said you wanted to stand beside me. This is what that means. This is my world. This is what I do." He should have walked out, should have called his lawyers, protected his company, his reputation, his safe and comfortable life. Instead, he asked, "What do you need exactly?" The relief in her eyes was worth every risk he was about to take. It took 2 days of careful manipulation. Junho used his legitimate business connections to access port records, claiming he needed to verify shipping costs for imported materials. Found discrepancies exactly where Zuri had predicted. Shipping containers flagged under false manifests, routes that didn't match, declared destinations, weights that were off, documentation that looked perfect but wasn't quite. He passed the information to Zuri through encrypted channels she'd set up, watched her work with her team, coordinating across multiple channels in languages that were beautiful, even though he couldn't understand them. Swahili, Yoruba, Amharic, French. She was a conductor orchestrating a dangerous symphony, and he was mesmerized. "Got them," she said finally, pointing to a screen showing satellite imagery. "Warehouse in Incheon. Containers arrived yesterday. They're still there, waiting for distribution." "Now what?" "Now I handle it. Now you forget everything you've seen and go back to your normal life." "No. Junho, I'm coming with you." He stood, crossed his arms. "You involved me. I'm invested. I need to see this through." "Absolutely not. Too dangerous." "If this goes wrong, I'm already implicated. The access came from my credentials. Might as well be there to see how the story ends." He held her gaze until she looked away first, a small victory. "Besides, if something happens to you, I need to know. I need to be there." She stared at him for a long moment, conflict playing across her face. Then she nodded once. "You stay in the vehicle, no matter what happens, no matter what you see or hear. You do not leave that vehicle." "Agreed." "I mean it, Junho. This isn't a game. This isn't exciting. This is dangerous. People could die tonight." "I understand." "Do you? Do you really?" He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. "I understand that you're going into danger, and I can't stand the thought of not being there. I understand that you're trying to protect me. I understand that this terrifies you, but I'm not letting you do this alone. So either I come officially or I follow in my own car. Your choice." "You're impossible." "I prefer determined." "You're going to give me gray hair." "You'd look beautiful with gray hair." She kissed him then, hard and fast and desperate. "Don't make me regret this." "I'll try my best." They moved at midnight because darkness provided cover. 3 SUVs this time, full tactical team, 8 women total, all armed, all moving with the precision of serious military training. Junho sat beside Zuri in the lead vehicle, watching her transform from the woman who kissed him to something else entirely. A general preparing for war, a queen about to defend her territory. She checked weapons with practiced ease, gave orders in multiple languages, reviewed the tactical approach on a tablet. This wasn't the woman who laughed at Pojangmacha or admitted being lonely. This was the operator, the survivor, the dangerous force everyone feared. And somehow, impossibly, he wanted her even more. "You're staring," she said without looking up. "You're magnificent. I'm terrifying." "That too." She finally looked at him, and something soft flickered across her face. "After tonight, you might not look at me same way. After tonight, I'll probably want you more. I'm broken like that. We're both broken. Maybe that's why this works." The warehouse was exactly where her intelligence indicated. Dark, guarded by 2 men trying very hard to look casual. But Zuri's team moved like shadows made flesh. Within minutes, they'd neutralized the exterior guards. Not killed, Junho noted with relief, just incapacitated with efficiency that was almost beautiful. "Wait here," Zuri said, preparing to exit. Her hand was already on the door handle. "Be careful." She turned back, and in the darkness of the vehicle, illuminated only by dashboard lights, she looked almost vulnerable. If something goes wrong, if this goes bad, you drive away. You don't wait. You don't try to help. You just go. Promise me. "I can't promise that. Junho, if something happens to you, there's no point in me being safe. So no, I won't promise to leave you behind. You're going to drive me insane. Good. Fair trade for what you've done to me." She kissed him one more time, soft and sweet and tasting like goodbye just in case. Then she was gone into the night. Junho watched through tinted windows as her team breached the warehouse, heard muffled sounds, shouting, crashes, what might have been gunfire. Every second felt like an hour. His hands clenched into fists. His jaw ached from clenching. Every instinct screamed to go to her, help her, protect her, but he'd promised to stay. Then his door opened. Not Zuri, not one of her guards, a man he didn't recognize. Korean, 50s, expensive suit that screamed old money, gun held casually but expertly. "Mr. SEO," the man said in perfect Seoul dialect, "please come with me. We need to talk." "I'm not going anywhere." The gun rose slightly, not threatening, just present. It wasn't a request. It was a courtesy. "You can walk or be carried. Your choice, but choose quickly." Junho's blood turned to ice. He'd broken the one rule Zuri had given him, and now he was about to pay for it. They walked him into the warehouse at gunpoint. Inside was chaos frozen in time, shipping containers torn open, weapons visible in the artificial light, Zuri's entire team held at gunpoint by at least a dozen armed men. Professional setup, military-grade weapons. This wasn't amateur hour. And in the center of it all, Zuri herself stood with her hands raised, face completely expressionless, body perfectly still. But when her eyes found his across the space, when she saw him being marched in with a gun to his spine, something cracked in that mask. Terror, fury, self-blame, all of it flashing across her features before control slammed back down. Their eyes met, and he saw everything she couldn't say. "I told you to stay. Why didn't you stay? This is my fault. I'm going to kill whoever touched you. Please don't die. Please, please don't die." "Well," said a voice from the shadows, drawing his attention. A man emerged, older, Korean, wearing the kind of understated luxury that marked old Seoul money, the families that had owned this city for generations. "The famous Seo Junho, I wondered when you'd appear in our little equation." "Who are you?" Junho's voice came out steadier than he felt. "Hwang Jin-woo, businessman, like you." His smile was poisonous, practiced. "Though my business portfolio is considerably less legal than yours, for now." Junho's mind raced through fragments of knowledge. Hwang. He knew that name. Old Seoul money. Rumored organized crime connections, stretching back to the 1970s. The kind of family that appeared completely legitimate on the surface while running empires of blood and money underneath. "Let him go," Zuri said, voice steady despite the guns trained on her. "This is between us. He's not part of this." "Isn't he? How interesting." Hwang circled them slowly, predator assessing prey. The African queen and the pretty CEO. What a delightfully modern fairy tale. "Did you think I wouldn't notice you poking into my operations? Did you think I wouldn't have contingencies?" "Your operations?" Zuri's voice was sharp as broken glass. "You're moving weapons through my network without permission, using my name, my contacts, my protection. That's a violation of every territorial agreement in East Asia." "Your network?" Hwang laughed, and it was an ugly sound. "You think because you control a few African imports, a few desperate immigrants, a few scattered communities, you run Seoul. This is Korea, sweetheart. This is my city, my country, my rules. Then why hide behind my reputation? Why use my roots and my contacts?" "Because your reputation keeps certain authorities distracted while I work. Your African network provides perfect cover for my operations, but you've become inconvenient, too curious, too careful, too damn good at what you do." He gestured, and one of his men pressed a gun directly to Junho's temple, cold metal against his skin. The reality of his own mortality made suddenly, terrifyingly concrete. "So here's my offer. You leave Seoul tonight. Take your pretty little empire back to Africa, disappear, and I let your boyfriend live to see sunrise." Junho felt cold metal against his skull and thought, This is real. I'm going to die. This is how my story ends." "No," Zuri said simply, firmly, no hesitation. Huang raised an eyebrow. "No, I'm offering you his life. I don't negotiate with men who think they're clever when they're actually just predictable." Her voice dropped, became something lethal and cold. "You made 3 critical mistakes tonight, Huang. First, you assumed I came unprepared. Second, you assumed my team was all I brought. Third," she smiled, and it was terrifying, "you assumed I needed him alive more than I need you dead." The words hit Jun-ho like ice water. Was she sacrificing him? Playing some game he didn't understand? Then he saw it. The slight shift in her eyes, the tiniest movement of her fingers. A signal. Everything happened at once. Explosions of sound and light, flashbangs detonating overhead. Someone had breached through the warehouse roof. Zuri moved like liquid violence, somehow producing a weapon from nowhere and disarming the nearest guard in a movement too fast to follow. Her team recovered instantly, muscle memory and training overriding surprise. Gunfire erupted. Controlled, precise shots meant to disable, not kill. The man holding Jun-ho lost his grip as something metal cracked against his skull from behind. Jun-ho dropped instinctively, rolled, found himself pressed against a shipping container while chaos unfolded in a nightmare ballet of violence around him. He caught glimpses. Zuri moving with deadly grace, every movement economical and precise. Her guards working in perfect sync. Huang's men going down under the coordinated assault. It was over in 90 seconds that felt like 90 hours. When silence fell, Huang's men were down or surrendering, weapons on the ground. And Zuri stood over Huang himself, gun pressed to his forehead, knee on his chest, looking every inch the queen her reputation claimed. "You were saying," she asked pleasantly, voice almost friendly, "something about your city." Huang was breathing hard, blood running from his nose where someone had hit him. "You can't kill me. My family, they'll come for you. They'll tear you apart. Your family will receive a detailed account of your unauthorized weapons trafficking, complete with evidence, complete with testimony. They'll kill you themselves to avoid the scandal and the attention." She leaned closer. "But I'm feeling generous tonight. So here's my counteroffer. Leave Seoul, tonight. If I even hear your name in this city again, I won't be so kind. Run far, run fast, because if I have to come looking for you, they'll never find enough pieces to bury." She stood, stepped back with casual grace. Her guards hauled Huang to his feet and dragged him toward the exit like trash being taken out. Then Zuri turned to Jun-ho, crossed the space between them with purposeful strides, and slapped him hard enough across the face that his ears rang. "What the hell were you thinking?" Her voice shook with fury and fear in equal measure. "I said stay in the vehicle. I specifically said stay in the vehicle. That was the one rule." "He had a gun. I didn't have a choice." "I know he had a gun. I have 30 guns. That's not the point." She grabbed his shirt, pulled him close, and he realized she was shaking. Actually shaking. "You could have died, you absolute idiot. You could have died, and it would have been my fault for bringing you here, for letting you close, for caring about you when I knew better. But I didn't die. I'm fine. We're both fine." "But you could have." Her voice cracked completely. "Don't you understand? This is why I don't let people close, because they become targets. Because caring about someone makes you vulnerable in ways weapons can't fix. Because losing you would—" She stopped, breathing hard, tears threatening to fall. "Because I just found you and I can't lose you. Not like this. Not because of my world. Not because I'm selfish enough to want something good when good things don't survive around me." He kissed her, hard and desperate and tasting like adrenaline and fear and relief and 1,000 other things he couldn't name. She responded instantly, hands moving from his shirt to his hair, kissing him back like the world was ending and this was their last moment. When they broke apart, she was crying, actually crying, tears streaming down her face, making tracks through dust and cordite residue, the Ice Queen melting in real time. "I can't lose you," she whispered against his lips. "I just found you. You won't. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. You're an idiot. You're idiot. Promise me." She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "Promise me you'll never do something that stupid again. Promise me you'll trust me when I tell you to stay safe." "I promise to try, but I can't promise to watch you walk into danger and not want to follow. I can't promise to value my safety over yours. I can't promise to be rational when it comes to you." She laughed through tears. "You're going to make me old before my time." "You'll be beautiful old." "Stop making me laugh when I'm trying to be angry with you." "Make me." She kissed him again, softer this time, a promise instead of desperation. When she finally pulled away, she was smiling despite everything. "Come on," she said, "let's get out of here before the real police show up and we have to explain all this." The fallout was immediate and complicated in ways Jun-ho hadn't fully anticipated. "The board knows," Min-jun said 3 days after the warehouse incident. He burst into Jun-ho's office looking genuinely panicked, tablet in hand, face pale. "Not details, but enough. They know you were involved in something in Incheon. They know there were police reports. Questions are being asked. Serious questions." "What kind of questions?" Jun-ho leaned back in his chair, unsurprised. He'd been waiting for this shoe to drop. The kind that end with votes of no confidence. The kind where they start discussing removing you as CEO. Your father's old guard is circling, Jun-ho. They think you've lost your mind. Consorting with criminals. Risking the company reputation. They're talking about intervention. Jun-ho sat in his corner office, looking out at Seoul's skyline, the city he'd been born into, the empire his father had built and left him to manage. He'd spent years being perfect, controlled, untouchable, playing the game exactly as expected. One woman had destroyed all of it, and he didn't regret a single second. "Set up an emergency board meeting," he said calmly. "Tomorrow morning, I'll address their concerns directly." "Jun-ho, they want blood. They want answers. What are you going to tell them?" "The truth. Enough of it anyway." The emergency board meeting was exactly as hostile as expected, possibly worse. 12 board members, most of them his father's generation, all of them suspicious and angry and worried about their investments. They sat around the mahogany table like judges at an execution, folders open, faces grim. Director Kim, the oldest, most powerful, most traditional, spoke first. "Mr. SEO, reports suggest you were involved in an incident at Incheon Port, an incident involving weapons, organized crime, and police intervention. This reflects extraordinarily poorly on our company, on everything your father built." "I was gathering intelligence on shipping irregularities that could have affected our port contracts and development timelines," Jun-ho said smoothly, meeting each board member's eyes with practiced calm. "I acted to protect our business interests and ensure our partnerships remained secure." "By consorting with known criminals?" Director Park, younger but equally conservative, leaned forward. "By putting yourself and this company at risk?" "By using available resources to prevent a situation that would have damaged our relationships with port authorities and potentially exposed us to regulatory scrutiny. The weapons trafficking ring has been dismantled. Our contracts remain intact and actually strengthened by our cooperation with authorities. I'd say that's excellent risk management and good business." "And your relationship with this Melissa woman?" Director Kim wasn't convinced. Wouldn't be convinced. "Multiple sources report you've been seen with her, that she came to your home with armed guards, that you're involved." "My personal life is exactly that, personal and irrelevant to board matters. Everything you do reflects on this company, boy. You carry your father's name. You can't just—" "Then I'll make it simple." Jun-ho stood, the decision crystallizing in real time. "I'm taking a temporary leave of absence, 6 months effective immediately. Director Park can serve as interim CEO. He's qualified, experienced, and you all trust him. I'll maintain an advisory role but step back from day-to-day operations." Silence. Absolute shocked silence. This was unprecedented. A SEO stepping away from the company? Voluntarily? "Why?" Director Kim finally asked, genuinely confused. "Because I need perspective. Because I won't let my personal life destroy what my father spent his life building. Because I'm asking for trust. Trust I believe I've earned through 6 years of unprecedented growth and success." He looked around the table, meeting each gaze. "I've tripled this company's value. I've expanded our portfolio into markets my father never imagined. I've made every single person in this room wealthier than they dreamed possible. I'm asking for 6 months. Give me that." After heated discussion, after arguments about responsibility and legacy and what his father would think, they agreed. Barely. With conditions and oversight and weekly reports. But they agreed. Junho walked out of the building feeling lighter than he had in years, like he'd been carrying weight he didn't know was there and had finally set it down. Zuri was waiting in the parking garage, leaning casually against her Ducati like she owned the space. She'd been there every day since Incheon, never asking to come up, never pressuring him, just present. A silent support he hadn't known he needed until he had it. "How'd it go?" she asked when he approached. "I stepped back. 6 months leave." Her eyes widened in genuine shock. "You gave up your company? For me?" "Not for you, for us. For the chance to figure out what this is, without the weight of expectations and board meetings and constantly looking over my shoulder." He moved closer, invaded her space the way she always invaded his. "You said you're tired of being alone at the top. So am I. Maybe we can be alone together, figure out what this is, build something real." That's still the worst romantic line I've ever heard. "I'm new at this whole authentic emotion thing. Give me time to improve." She pulled him into a kiss, right there in the concrete garage with security cameras recording and his entire professional reputation on the line. When they broke apart, she was smiling, that genuine, unguarded smile that made his chest ache. 6 months, she said. "What do we do with 6 months? I have some ideas." "Dirty ideas?" "Some of them, most of them actually." "Good." She handed him a helmet. She'd started keeping a spare for him. "Get on, let's start now." The 6 months became a strange, beautiful education that changed him in fundamental ways. Junho learned Zuri's world. Not the violence, she kept him carefully away from that, maintained boundaries even as others fell. But the network, the diaspora communities she served, the legitimate businesses she built alongside the illegitimate ones, the delicate balance she maintained between power and protection. He met her people, women who'd fled war zones and poverty, finding safety in her network, men who'd been denied opportunities in their home countries, given chances here, families who'd found success in Seoul because someone had bothered to care, to invest, to protect. Zuri wasn't just a crime lord collecting protection money. She was a protector in the truest sense, a gatekeeper, a queen who actually cared for her subjects in ways that went beyond profit. "This is why you do it," he said one night, lying in her apartment, modest compared to his mansion but warm and lived in and somehow more like home. "The illegal stuff. It's not about money or power. Not really." "Money and power help," she corrected, tracing idle patterns on his chest with her fingertips, touch both absent and intensely focused. "But no, it's about protection. Real protection. The kind the system doesn't provide. The kind desperate people need." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "Your world has rules, laws, structure. Mine doesn't. Sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes people need someone willing to operate outside the lines to keep them safe. You're basically a vigilante with better funding. I'm basically tired of watching good people get crushed by systems that don't care," She rolled over, pressed her body fully against his. Your world makes sense on paper. Mine makes sense in reality. Sometimes those don't align. And you don't worry about getting caught? About what happens if the law finally catches up? Every day, every single day. Her voice went quiet. But I'm more careful now, because I have something I didn't before. What? A reason to be more careful. A reason to think about the future instead of just surviving the present. A reason to consider that maybe I don't have to do this forever. She kissed his shoulder, the gesture intimate and vulnerable. You make me want to live, not just exist. Want to build something that lasts instead of just protecting what's already here. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. See? I can be smooth when I want to be, when I try. They laughed, tangled in sheets and dreams of impossible futures, building something neither had known they needed until they found it. But peace never lasts in worlds like theirs. 4 months into Junho's leave, Zuri came home looking shattered. Not physically injured, but emotionally devastated in a way he'd never seen. What happened? He asked immediately, pulling her close. Huang's family is making moves. They're not attacking directly. They learned that lesson, but they're trying to absorb my network from within, offering my people more money, better protection, legitimate business partnerships. Some are switching sides. Some are considering it. Can you stop it? Not without starting an actual war, a real one with bodies and investigations and attention I can't afford. I've avoided open conflict for 7 years by being smarter, faster, more valuable than my competitors. But if I look weak now, if I don't respond, I lose everything I've built. What do you need? I need. She stopped, paced her apartment like a caged animal, all that controlled grace replaced by agitation. I need legitimacy. My network runs on reputation and fear and value, but that only works in shadows. Huang's family can offer legal protection, legitimate business partnerships, government connections. I can't compete with that using the tools I have. Junho's mind raced, pieces clicking together. What if you could? What? Legitimate partnership, legal business structure. My company could contract with yours. Import, export, art, textiles, everything you do that's actually legal, we make official in public. We create a business relationship that gives you access to our legal teams, our political connections, our legitimacy. We make you untouchable through official channels. That would tie your company to mine publicly. Your board would lose their minds. I have controlling shares. They can complain loudly, but they can't actually stop me. He moved closer, took her hands. You protected me in that warehouse. You've kept me safe in your world. Let me protect you now. Different battlefield, same fight. This could destroy your reputation completely. Everything you've built. My reputation is a cage I've been dying to escape. I'd rather have you and controversy than safety and boredom. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. I love you, Zuri. I'm completely, impossibly, terrifyingly in love with you. Let me help. The words hung in the air. First time either had said them out loud. I love you too, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Even though you're absolutely insane, even though this is crazy, even though we're going to face hell for this, I love you. Then let me fight beside you. She kissed him, deep and desperate and full of love and fear and hope. Okay, she said. Okay, let's do it. Let's burn it all down and build something new. The partnership announcement sent shockwaves through Seoul's business world that registered on every social and financial Richter scale. SEO Luxury Developments and Melissa Import Group, official joint venture, multi-year contracts. Junho returned from leave early to spearhead the integration personally, standing at press conferences beside Zuri, making it all public and undeniable. The board was absolutely furious. The press was fascinated. Competitors were confused. Rumors flew. Romantic involvement, money laundering, foreign influence, every conspiracy theory imaginable. But it worked. Within weeks, Zuri's people saw the advantage clearly: legal protection, legitimate business growth, government connections, stability that couldn't be threatened by rivals. Huang's family couldn't compete with that, not without exposing their own criminal enterprises to scrutiny they couldn't afford. The poaching stopped. The network stabilized and actually grew. Zuri remained queen, but now with armor that couldn't be stripped away by threats or money. "You saved my empire," she told him 6 months after the announcement, standing in their new shared penthouse overlooking the Han River. "You saved my life. Multiple times. We're even." "No, we're not. You gave up your perfect reputation for me, your father's legacy, your safe life." "My reputation was a prison. You set me free." He pulled her close, breathed in that scent that still made him dizzy. "Besides, we're building something better, something ours, something that actually matters." She laughed against his chest. "The headline writers are still having fun. Seoul's most eligible bachelor, tamed by mysterious African queen. We're basically a drama plot. The kind where everyone lives happily ever after. The kind where everyone fights like hell to make happy happen, eventually, after lots of struggle. I can live with that. Good, because I'm not going anywhere." She pulled back to look at him. "Move in with me. Officially. Let's stop pretending we maintain separate spaces when you sleep here every night anyway. Are you asking me to officially shack up with you? I'm asking you to build a life with me. Publicly. Completely. No more shadows unless we choose them together." Junho pretended to think about it for exactly 2 seconds. "Yes. Absolutely yes. That was quick. I've been waiting for you to ask since the first time you kissed me." They found a penthouse in Hanam-dong that was perfect. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River, space for her security team, an office for him, a studio where she could work on legitimate business, and he pretended not to know about the other kind. It was theirs. 1 year after that fateful traffic encounter, Junho woke to find Zuri already up, standing on their balcony watching the sunrise paint Seoul gold and pink. He joined her silently, wrapping arms around her from behind, chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different life is now. How I almost died that night running from an ambush. How I stopped at that traffic light thinking it might be my last moment of peace before everything exploded." Her voice was soft with memory. "How I saw you in that ridiculous expensive car, trying so hard to be charming, and I thought, here's someone who doesn't know real danger, real consequences, someone innocent. And now you're as guilty as I am, accomplice to my empire, partner in my crimes, the other half of my dangerous heart." She turned in his arms, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "And I love you for it, for choosing me even when you knew better, for jumping off the cliff beside me. I didn't know better, I just knew you. Same thing." He kissed her, slow and deep, tasting coffee and morning and promises kept and promises still to be made. "Marry me," he said when they broke apart. Zuri blinked. "What? Marry me. Make it official in every way. Queen and CEO, power couple, legal partnership and eternal partnership. Make me the happiest idiot in Seoul." "That's the second worst proposal I've ever heard." "What was the first?" "There wasn't one. I'm just preparing you for a lifetime of me mocking your romantic skills." She cupped his face, thumbs brushing his cheekbones. "Yes, you beautiful disaster. I'll marry you. I'll spend the rest of my life driving you insane and keeping you alive and loving you so hard it terrifies us both. That's the most romantic threat I've ever received." "Good. Get used to it." They stood on that balcony as Seoul woke around them, two people who'd found each other in the worst possible way and made it work anyway. A crime queen and a CEO, a motorcycle and a Bentley, traffic lights and destiny and the kind of chemistry that could burn cities down. Some love stories start with meet-cutes and coffee dates. Theirs started with danger and denial and chemistry so strong it rewrote all their rules. And somehow, impossibly, they'd turned it into something beautiful. 6 months later, the wedding was intimate despite their public profiles. Private beach in Jeju Island, far from Seoul's eyes. Only people they truly trusted, which wasn't many, but the ones who came mattered. Zuri wore white silk that moved like water, custom designed to hide the small scars she'd collected over years of dangerous living. Junho wore custom Hermenegildo Zenya in midnight blue. Her guards formed a discreet perimeter. His friends formed the small audience, Min Jun as best man, looking both happy and terrified. When they exchanged vows, half were in Korean, half in Swahili, a blending of worlds that shouldn't fit but somehow did perfectly. "I never thought I'd do this," Zuri whispered during their first dance, the ocean providing music alongside the small band. "Never thought I'd let someone close enough to matter this much." "How's it feel?" "Terrifying. Perfect. Like jumping off a cliff and discovering I can fly because you're flying beside me." "That's the second most romantic thing you've ever said." "What was first?" "When you told me you'd love me so hard it scares us both." She laughed, and it echoed across the beach. Pure joy. Still true. More true now than ever. Good. I'd be disappointed otherwise. They danced as the sun set over the ocean, painting the world in impossible colors. Two people who'd survived bullets and betrayal in board meetings to find something neither had known they needed until it found them. Later, much later, lying in their honeymoon suite with moonlight streaming through windows, Zuri traced the scar on his shoulder, from the Incheon warehouse where debris had caught him. "Regret anything?" she asked quietly. "Honestly? Not even a little. Not a single second. You? Just that I didn't meet you sooner. We could have saved ourselves years of being lonely. We found each other when we needed to. That's enough. That's everything. You're getting much better at romantic lines. I have an excellent teacher." She kissed him then, slow and deep and full of promises about the life they'd build together. Outside, the ocean whispered against sand. Inside, two hearts beat in synchronization, an African queen and a Korean CEO who'd built an empire on love and legitimacy and the kind of loyalty that couldn't be bought or broken. Their story had started in traffic with a challenge, somewhere you can't follow, but he had followed. Into her world, her danger, her heart, her life, and she'd let him. That was the real miracle. Not the survival, not the success, not the empire they were building together, but the surrender. Two people powerful enough to destroy each other, choosing instead to build something beautiful. Choosing love over safety, choosing each other over everything else. That's the end, besties. Glad you enjoyed yourself. Don't click off just yet. Check out the stories in my Mafia romance playlist. They are going to make your head spin and your cheeks hurt from smiling.